here. This is one of the most interesting times in all of human history. We are witnessing in 2023 the AI awakening, and it's only going to accelerate from here. All of human history, and you're thinking, well, that's pretty grandiose to be saying, but just for fun, tonight or sometime when you're having a dinner party, sit around with your friends and ask them, what do you think were the most important things in all of human history? Who are the most important people? And I'm sure they'll come up with kings and queens and empires, conquests, plagues. But I'm an economist. And as you look quantitatively at what's happened, for most of history, it wasn't much. For decades, centuries, millennia, the average person, the typical person on planet Earth lived pretty much the same. They were kind of living a little bit above subsistence level, scraping out a living, working 5, 6, 7 days a week. It wasn't easy. And all these other things, these empires and conquests, didn't really change their daily lives a whole lot until the late 1700s, around 1776, a guy, not Ben Franklin, James Watt, introduced a new technology. And the steam engine, he made a much better steam engine. And as you can see, that ignited the Industrial Revolution. And ever since then, living standards have been soaring. We are maybe 30 or 40 times richer than our ancestors a couple of hundred years ago. So no longer are we living in subsistence, especially here in Las Vegas. This is far from subsistence. And the reason for that was, I believe, because of this powerful technology. Economists call it a general purpose technology, a GPT. General purpose technologies like the steam engine trigger cascades of productivity growth and higher living standards. The steam engine was the first really important general purpose technology, but it wasn't the last one. Right now, we're witnessing potentially an even more important GPT. I know GPT, you guys, we economists had that phrase first. GPT was general purpose technology, and now everyone thinks it's generative pre-trained transformer. General acronym we use for it, AI, is a GPT. And it has these 3 characteristics that define general purpose technologies. It's pervasive, it affects almost every sector of the economy, every task. It is able to be improved over time. In fact, nothing improves as fast as AI. And most importantly, it spawns complementary innovations. That is, it triggers benefits in lots of different other areas. People can build on it and change the way they run their businesses. In fact, you can make the case that AI is the most general of all general purpose technologies. Here's my friend Dennis Hassabis, founder of Google DeepMind. And if you go visit him in King's Cross in London and he's not playing with his chess toys, you can see a little slogan on the wall of his company. Our goal is to solve intelligence and then to use that to solve all the other problems in the world. I'm sure you guys have a mission statement that's suitably modest like that in your companies as well. But there's some truth to it. If we can solve intelligence, imagine all the other problems we could make headway on in the environment, healthcare, poverty, etc. And so if we can truly have machines that are intelligent, that is the most general of all general purpose technologies. It's really an amazing time. And right now, we are beginning to live through that. Of course, the roots started a little bit earlier. AI is an old field, 50 years old. It really started taking off about a decade ago. My colleague at Stanford, Fei-Fei Li, put together a data set called ImageNet with 14 million images. And machines were not very good at recognizing any of them. In fact, in my earlier books, I gave recognizing a face as an example of what humans could do well and machines couldn't do well. Of course, I can't say that anymore because machines have gotten very good at it. Starting around 2012, they started rapidly improving. That's when Jeff Hinton, sometimes called the father of deep learning, introduced these deep neural network techniques. And as soon as he did that, he saw that there's an amazing improvement in the ability to recognize images, not just faces and gazelles and oranges and so forth, but cancer, quality assurance, and everybody is now using these techniques. And as the three amigos mentioned a minute ago, it's not just in image recognition. These techniques are taking over more and more domains. And if anything, it's accelerating. And that little line there of human performance is really important to economists like me and to business executives, entrepreneurs, and managers like you. Because if you have two different ways to solve a problem, and one of them just works better and cheaper, you're going to switch over from the old way to the new way. That's just economically rational. And so for more and more tasks, we're finding that humans are no longer the best way to do it, or humans by themselves. I heard them say keeping humans in the loop, and I'm very much a proponent of that. Humans and machines working together can solve problems that machines alone can't solve. I wrote a book with Andy McAfee a little while back on the second machine age, and we made this distinction between the steam engine and some of the earlier technologies that really were machines of muscle that automated and augmented physical power to machines of the mind. And that's the era that we're living in now. The new machines are augmenting our intellect, our brains. Artificial intelligence is a set of techniques to do that. But it really took off when people introduced a new approach, which is machine learning. Instead of us painstakingly teaching the machine step by step what to do, coding and codifying it. Those of you who write Python or C, you know that it can be very painstaking. And if you get even a little piece of it wrong, it doesn't work. Machine learning is different. Some people call it software 2.0. Instead of us instructing exactly what we want the machine to do, we give the machine examples, inputs and outputs, and it learns from those. In every one of your organizations, there are dozens, probably hundreds of applications like these, where you have a set of inputs, digital data, inputs X, and a set of digital data, outputs Y. And all you need to do is assemble that, and then you can teach a machine. The machine can teach itself how to make a mapping from voice recordings to transcripts, from transaction details to which ones are fraud. You just need lots of examples of that. And one thing we've got a lot of over the past couple of decades is lots of digital data. And it's being used for all sorts of interesting applications. This is a picture of an autonomous robot weed killer that some farmers are using now. It has a dozen cameras, and it can, with machine learning, it has learned how to identify weeds that shouldn't be there and distinguish them from the crops that should be there. And then it has these lasers, you can see that zap the weeds and kill them. That's right. We now have an autonomous robot that uses AI to automatically extinguish, eliminate bad species using lasers. What could go wrong? There are lots of more benevolent applications as well, and we're all going to be richer as a result. And in your organization, you should be paying close attention to where are there opportunities to apply these technologies. But it hasn't ended there. It's not just machine learning. Now, as we've heard, we've got generative AI. In just the past year or two, that's really taken off. Again, people were working on it. It goes back to some transformer architectures from about 5 or 6 years ago. But with ChatGPT, it became very popular and widespread, and it can be used to generate text, images, video, sound, lots of other things. There's been an explosion of complementary innovations there as well, especially around me out at Stanford in Silicon Valley. Every time I can't walk a block without running into somebody who's doing a new startup. When I fly back, I'm going to be joining somebody who's doing a hackathon, doing a new startup in this area. So there's just so many opportunities for doing this, and it is accelerating the economic implications. One metric of this is a nice paper called Sparks of AGI by Eric Horowitz and some of his colleagues at Microsoft. They looked at dozens, the paper's like 120 pages. It's just filled with them testing different applications of these tools. First with GPT-3, GPT-3.5, GPT-4. Here's one of the charts from it. If you look at, let's just zoom in on like the 6th bar there, I think it is, uniform bar exam. That's what lawyers say. I don't know how many people are lawyers out there. You know, raise your hand, it's starts. And I know that taking the bar exam is not the same as practicing law, but it is pretty impressive that these systems, they used to get about 10% on the uniform bar exam just earlier this year or late last year. Now with GPT-4, they get like 90%, or I should say better than 90% of humans. So it's very rapidly improving. I haven't seen technology improve this rapidly. And of course, it's not over. They're training GPT-5, they're training Claude and Anthropic, they're training Gemini at Google. We're going to see systems that are 10 times bigger and almost surely significantly more powerful. Now, I can go on about more about the technology, but I'm an economist, so let me tell you a little bit about some of the economic implications of this. First, we'll talk about productivity. Productivity isn't everything, but in the long run, it's almost everything. It's what drives all of our living standards. It's ultimately what determines how well off we are and how well we can solve our problems. And secondly, the transformation of work. Everyone's concerned, as they should be, about what this means for jobs and labor and how we're going to navigate this transition. So first, productivity. So with productivity, I've actually been kind of disappointed. I've seen these amazing technologies, but if you look at the underlying data, it's kind of disappointing. The overall productivity growth in the United States, instead of accelerating, it's actually slowed down. From 1995 to 2004, 2005 or so, it grew by about 2.8% per year. And that was pretty good. That's one of the reasons that we wiped out the budget deficit. We were able to actually improve our living standards quite a bit during that period. But since then, it's slowed down less than half as fast. Part of it we thought was a great recession, but even after that, it continued to grow slowly. There have been some ups and downs, but the overall average has only been about 1.3% per year. And it's not just the United States. I thought maybe something's going wrong in America, but almost every country has seen a similar slowdown. So that's a paradox, a productivity paradox, that we have amazing technologies, but disappointing productivity. What's going on? Well, history, again, can help provide some guidance to that. And one of the things that I've done is looked at examples of earlier general purpose technologies like the steam engine. Another super powerful one is electricity. And my colleague, Paul David, did some of the best work on this. He looked at the electrification of American factories. And how did it work? Well, before electricity, factories were powered by what? Well, steam engines, sometimes water wheels. And you can't make little steam engines. It's not, the thermodynamics don't work. So you tend to have a really big steam engine in the middle. And then it had crankshafts and pulleys that were hooked up to the steam engine that powered all the equipment in the factory. And you can't make those crankshafts too long because they would break. So you tended to cluster all the equipment in close around the machine. In fact, they were smart. They didn't just do it in 2 dimensions, they did it in 3 dimensions. They did some above and some below. So these multi-story, kind of crowded, dark, dirty, dangerous factories. That's what factories looked like for the 1800s. So they introduced electricity. What did the new factories with electricity look like? Well, they went and took out the steam engine. They got the biggest electric motor they could find. They put it back in there. And nothing much changed. There was no significant productivity gain. According to Paul David, for 10, 20, over 30 years, productivity barely bunched in those factories. 30 years. That's about how long it takes for a generation of managers to retire or die. So only until the 1920s, things started improving. Why was that? Well, they started building new factories. But interestingly, at first, what did the new factories look like? They looked just like the old factories. They would redo the same design, build it from scratch with a big electric motor in the middle, and still no productivity gain. It was only after a new generation of managers came along and said, wait a minute. Electric motors, you can make them small, medium, big, whatever size you want. And you don't have to have all the equipment clustered around one power source. You can have a separate motor for each piece of equipment. And that gives you a lot of freedom to lay things out however you want. It doesn't have to all be by the power source. So for the first time, you started seeing these new kinds of factories. Henry Ford and others introduced assembly lines with electrification of each of the equipment. And the layout was single story, often multi-acre, and each piece of equipment has its own motor, and it was set up not based on power sources, but based on the flow of materials. So once you did that, did you see a productivity gain? Oh my God, yes. you saw a doubling and tripling of productivity, 100%, 200% gains. It was like nothing they'd seen before. So what's the lesson here? The lesson was that electricity is a general purpose technology. And it's not that it was a dud. People said, oh, it's a fad, it's not important. Obviously, electricity is not just a fad. However, by itself, it doesn't automatically unlock productivity gains. You have to combine it with reinventing business processes, redesigning how work is done. And that can take time. You have to develop new skills in the workforce. And that was true for the steam engine, and it's going to be true for AI as well. And right now, we're still in that early period where people are kind of muddling around, trying to figure out how to use the technology. And they need to often develop new skills in the workforce, change range responsibilities, change their product lines. That takes a lot of effort. In fact, I've got some research that found that when people install large IT systems, these ERP and other big enterprise systems, that only about 10% of the investment is in hardware and software. 90% goes in new business processes, development, new skills. And so this iceberg is not just a metaphor, it really is about the right ratio of intangibles that we don't see very much, like skills and processes, versus tangibles like hardware and software. Most managers don't appreciate how important those intangibles are. The other thing about the intangibles are that they take time to invent and roll out. And that's part of why these things take a long time. And we're seeing that happening right now with the modern productivity paradox. We are still in that stage where people are trying to invent better ways of using the technology. The second thing I want to talk about is the transformation of work as we get into the second machine age. Let's go back to our friend Jeff Hinton. He's a brilliant computer scientist, AI researcher. And back in 2016, it was like 7 years ago, he said people should just stop training radiologists. It's completely obvious that in 5 years, deep learning is going to do a better job. We already have enough radiologists. So that was his prediction. And he was right that there's many papers now that show that machine learning systems can do better than radiologists. But I just gave a talk at a medical conference, and so I had to go and double check his prediction. Turns out he's not as good an economist as he is a machine learning researcher. So we don't have fewer radiologists. Actually, there's almost a doubling of demand for radiologists if you go by job ads, et cetera. And I checked with my healthcare friends there, and they said, indeed, there's plenty of demand currently for radiologists. Now, maybe that's going to change, but it's been more than the 5 years that Jeff Hinton predicted. So what's going on? Why are there still so many jobs? That's an interesting question. We actually, right now in the United States, we have almost record low unemployment, and we've had wave after wave of some pretty amazing technologies. So many people predicted the end of work. We're not seeing it, at least not yet. One way to look at this is to look at the specific tasks that machine learning is affecting. So machine learning can do many things, but we are far from what AI research called AGI, artificial general intelligence. The idea of AGI is just basically everything that a educated human can do. We're not there yet, but we do have very powerful narrow intelligence that can do specific tasks as well or better than humans. In fact, I took a painstaking job with my team. We tried to look at all the tasks in the US economy. Believe it or not, there's a list of all the tasks in the US economy. ONET, Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics puts together. They divide the economy into about 950 occupations like radiologist, kindergarten teacher, economist, software engineer. And for each of them, it's identified typically about 20 to 30 separate tasks that you need to do. If you're a bus driver, you do this. If you're a radiologist, you do that. We went through every one of those tasks and we scored it basically with a team of AI researchers as to whether or not there's a machine learning algorithm that would be able to do that task. So, identifying medical images, yes. Lifting a box and putting it on your truck, not currently. So if you go to radiologists, there were 27 tasks identified in ONET. One of them, number 4 there, is interpret images. So that's a very important job that radiologists do, but it's not the only job. That particular job, AI, machine learning has been able to do very well. And there's a paper in Science, Nature, showing machines can do that well. But they also do other things. For instance, they administer conscious sedation. I'm not so sure I want to walk into an office and have a robot do that without a human involved. And there are many other things, coordinating treatment plans with other doctors, explaining the diagnosis to the patient. These are things you probably don't want just a machine doing. You want to have a human at least in the loop on each of these things. And if you go through all the tasks, you see that yes, machines can help with some, but humans are still better at others. We looked at all 950 occupations. How many did we see that machine learning ran the table, did everything? None. There was not a single occupation where machine learning or any other technology did the whole thing currently. So we still have demand for humans to do those. But because machines do big parts of the jobs, we also see a lot of restructuring. So the coming decade is going to be a period of great restructuring, but not mass unemployment. And you can identify which jobs and occupations are going to be most affected. So in my paper, we looked at all these occupations, these little red dots, each of them is a different occupation, one of the 950 occupations. The horizontal axis is wages, high wages on the right, low wages on the left. And the vertical axis is whether or not machine learning can help with it. You see a pattern. On average, machine learning helps with more of the low-paid jobs, like cashier. We've all seen how they don't just read barcodes, they can identify bananas and oranges and other things better and better. And it is getting to the point now where that job almost doesn't need humans in most cases. There's some high-paid jobs like pilots that we also, according to our rubric, scored very high. Now, there may be other sociological or legal reasons that you want to keep the pilot on the plane with you when you're flying. But at least from a machine learning perspective, there's a lot of work that can be done. Of course, I couldn't help resist peeking and see where the economists were. Some people think we're paying too much. Now, that is the last wave of machine learning. There's a new wave, which is generative keychain transformers and other large language models we've just been hearing about. Interestingly, the pattern here is different. This is from another paper done by one of my former students with some folks at OpenAI. And they kind of did a similar analysis, not quite the same, but very similar to what I was showing you a minute ago. But this time, the technology that they looked at was LLMs and GPT, the OpenAI product. Now, the pattern's a little different. The high-wage jobs on the right are more likely to be affected. In fact, the peak is kind of like professional workers, sort of in the upper high end. People like us in this room right here, I think, are sort of the most likely to be affected. And think about it, we all work with language, we do work with documents. These are the things that are most affected by these tools. In fact, if you go through all of the tasks in the economy, once again, about 80% of the workforce have a lot of their tasks going to be affected. At least 10% of their tasks will be significantly affected. In fact, almost 20% of the workforce has over half of their work significantly affected by this one technology. I've never seen anything like this before. This is a tidal wave that is coming for the US economy, every modern economy, that's going to affect a huge fraction of the work being done. It's just the early days, but if you've got students or kids like I do, they're already using it for their homework and for lots of other tasks. A lot of you probably are using it. I'm sure everyone in this room is playing with ChatGPT and some of the other tools, but it's still the early days. And as this diffuses through the workforce, it's going to have huge effects on both productivity and the nature of work. Let me give you a case example of what we saw when we looked at this more closely. So we looked at a call center operation, and we looked at the introduction of a large language model from a company called Cresta. They did not try to replace the call center operators. It wasn't one of those things where you call and you talk to a robot. It's very frustrating. But they did use it to help the call center operator. They supplemented them. And so what would happen is the human would talk to the customer, and the LLM would kind of listen in and give suggestions and say, hey, this might be a good time to mention this other product, or here's a phrasing you can use to handle this. And the human could listen to the LLM or could ignore them. Most of the time they listen, sometimes they ignore them. In some cases, the LLM just didn't have a good answer. In other cases, it did. But this human machine system seemed to work pretty well. The nice thing from a researcher's perspective was that they rolled it out in a phased way. Some people got access to the technology and other people didn't. So we had kind of a natural experiment. we can get causal estimates. How much does the LLM cause a change in behavior, in productivity? Well, I can show you lots of regression tables and statistics, but you can just see it from the raw data that the shift to the right, the blue, they're significantly better performing. They're about 14% better performing. Within just a couple of months, you had an instant improvement in productivity, more customers' satisfaction, calls closed more rapidly. We even saw that the workers seemed to like it better. There was less turnover of the call center operators. So all three groups, the company's stockholders, the company's customers, the employees, they all seem to be better off with these tools. In fact, if you dive in deeper into the data, it wasn't just an overall shift. It was the biggest shift was for the least experienced workers, the least skilled workers. They had about a 35% improvement in productivity. 35%. So they were getting the biggest gains. The most skilled workers got relatively little gains. And the average, as I said, was about 14%. This is a huge win for this company. They're rolling out lots more. They're benefiting. Their customers are benefiting. We're seeing similar patterns in lots of other places. Now, LLMs can be used in call centers. They can be used in software engineering. They can be used for document summary. It's hard to know where to start. And so one of the things that you should all be doing is developing a roadmap for your generative AI strategy. I think a good place to start is with that task decomposition I described. It's overwhelming to look at all the things that LLMs can do, but if you have a structured way to enumerate the tasks that your company does, you can highlight where LLMs and generative AI tools can help and where other types of software can plug into. This task-based approach has proven very valuable. I have a company called WorkHelix that does exactly these kinds of analyses. We did it for one very big company. We found about $3 billion worth of savings or productivity gains. You can do it for smaller companies. This is a little dating website. We found about $35 million of productivity gains. And you can drill down. And this is what you should be doing, is looking at individual tasks and occupations. So you look at occupation like marketing manager. If you double click on that, you can see what are the tasks, what does a marketing manager do? One of the things they do is initiate market research studies, and they analyze the findings. And if you drill down further, you can see how there are a lot of tools out there that will help with solving that particular task. But this is the kind of way of going, instead of sort of like gut-based feel of, oh, where can LLMs, where can AI help? Do it in a structured way. Now, let me just say that there's a lot more you can do with this methodology, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Your board of directors should be asking questions, and if you don't know where to start, well, you can ask ChatGPT, and it will give you a set of questions to start. So these tools are really helpful for whether it's for CEOs or all different levels. There's a lot of hype around it as well, of course, but I've become convinced that we are in the early stages of what I call the AI awakening that will be transforming all of your businesses. And I'm hoping that you will not only just plug in the technology, but you'll undertake that kind of business transformation, that reskilling of your workforce that's needed to deliver the full benefits of this technology. If you'd like to read more about it, it's available on my websites. All that stuff is free for downloading. Thanks very much for giving me a chance to share the research. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, a few minutes here. We'll just absolutely. Yeah, let's do some questions. We're not going to do a demo of them, but we'll get some questions. Okay. That's awesome. This group can relate to this topic so much, right? I mean, we discussed this productivity, kind of the industrial age, and kind of the evolution of the impact on work for every Forward conference. So the first one we was asking about is use cases. You gave the use case example of contact center, right? Right. LLM, particular LLM, had a 14% productivity benefit. Exactly. So these guys love use cases. Is that an anomaly, or do you see more like that? And then I'm curious, is this a positive sign on the overall U.S. productivity? Great questions. So it's early days in the research. That was the first really careful study that I knew we did. But now, since then, some other people have been doing studies. Some of the places that they've seen really even bigger impacts are in software engineering. So many of you have people who are using sort of the GitHub repositories, and LLMs can help you find the right tools. Is a Copilot has been really effective for $20 a month. My son uses that a lot in his coding, and he says it's completely. It's taking things that used to take 5 or 6 hours, take an hour, half an hour, or less. There are other ones, document summaries. Medical doctors are using them when they cut them as a stack of notes and the patients, and maybe they're a kidney doctor. They don't need to read all of those. The LLM will summarize and pull them out. We do need a lot more research to identify specific opportunities. My sense, based on that research that Dana Roth and colleagues did, is that there is, as I mentioned, 80% of jobs have at least some tasks that will be effective. And if that number holds up, and if the productivity gains are anything close to what we saw on the other ones, we're going to see some really big productivity gains for the U.S. economy overall. I'm on record as predicting a doubling productivity growth in the U.S. economy, going from that 1.4% I showed you to closer to 3%. I made a bet with Bob Gordon, who's like a famous economist who's kind of a techno pessimist. And so we have money on the line, and in 2030, we'll find out whether it's closer to 3% or 1.4%.
Does that return us though to a level? I mean, you were talking in the great slide, you talks about it's sort of disappointing how productivity decade. Does that return us to a level at that rate, or will we just improve?
Yeah. So this is the growth rate. So we're already, to be fair, our level of productivity is already higher than it was in the 90s. Right? Our growth rate is not as fast as it used to be. And this will return us to 3%. Actually, I think I'm lowballing it. The 3% will get us back to the same level of productivity growth we had in the 90s and early 2000s. So I think that's very achievable. I mean, honestly, I would be even just a little bit disappointed if it was only 3%. I suspect it's going to be more than that, because that's just assuming the existing technologies.
Yeah.
And we know that the smart guys at UiPath and everywhere else are working on more and more technologies over the coming years.
So your target, is that largely AI disruption driven?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is that move from 1.4% to 3%, that extra 1.5%, 1.6% is just due to what AI can do. Now, to be fair, there's a lot of things. There could be wars. We're seeing war now. There can be, recessions, hurricanes, whatever. Other things can happen, but the technology by itself should roughly double our productivity.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the question is kind of topical. Last week, Jamie Dimon, head of JP Morgan, said they predicted that AI was going to create the 3.5-day work week prior to our kids. My kids are actually in college, so that won't happen. But prior to our kids coming to the workforce, and our co-CEO, Rob Benson, said 4 days yesterday. What do you think?
I think so. I think kids will be seeing that. So will mine. I mentioned my son already. And he's like, so the second half of the story is that he used to be able to, it used to take him 6 or 7 hours, and now it takes him an hour. I'm not sure he's told his boss that. That's just, and I'm sure that's happening in a lot of other places as well. But back in the time of John Maynard Keynes, 1930, people worked a lot more. There was 60-hour work weeks, now down to like 40 or 35. I think it's totally realistic that what Jamie Dimon said, to get down to 3.5 days. And if we keep seeing the accelerating productivity, I mean, people have their choices. They can take that greater productivity in more consumption, bigger TVs like these TVs you guys have, and lots of other things, or maybe take it in leisure or some combination of the two.
Yeah. The pandemic had some role in this shifts as well, I think.
Yes. Yeah. So I've done a lot of work on remote work as well. Before the pandemic, about 1 in 6 Americans worked at home. At the peak, it was about 50%.
Yeah.
Now it's back to about a third.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's ever going to go back to where it was. Probably twice as many people will work at home, and it's probably going to start creeping up. And once you work at home, it opens up a lot of possibilities. We're doing things differently. It requires new management methods. If there's been mixed evidence on the productivity from working at home, but I think that the way to reconcile it is that if you manage it well, it actually can be a productivity gain. If you manage it poorly, it's a disaster.
Yeah, totally. So I live in Washington, D.C., so I might be a bit biased from everything I see every day in the news in D.C., but I'm curious your views on the kind of what policymakers should be doing with AI, and it's, I mean, whether it's tax policy or it's safety. What are your thoughts?
It's a really important question. I was just in Washington. I happened to run into Janet Yellen, and when she saw some of these productivity numbers, she's like, Eric, if we could move productivity by just a few tenths of a percent, that would be a big deal. So this 1.5% would really make a big difference to the budget deficit that she's struggling with right now, and a lot of other things. I've seen a real sea change in the attitude of policymakers. For a decade, I've talked to them, and honestly, they were kind of like they just didn't care about AI. It wasn't on their radar. Now, because of ChatGPT and other things, I'm not sure why, but they're paying so much more attention. When I go there, they've read all the papers. They're asking whether I go to the White House, the Council of Economic Advisors, or the Senate, or the Department of Labor. There's a real energy, and it's a good thing because one thing I want to make very clear is that there's no single inevitable path that this technology is going to take. I mean, it's going to happen whether at the company level or the level of the whole country. We have a lot of choices. And over the past decade, I talked about the productivity growth not being that great. But another thing that was even worse was that there's this huge divergence in incomes.
Yeah.
And the people at the bottom, people with high school education or less, actually had their real wages fall.
Yeah.
That didn't have to happen. That was partly a policy choice. So going forward, I think we can do some policy choices on tax policy. We can even the taxes between capital and labor. We can invest more in training. We can make it easier for people to start companies and to develop these new business models that I talked about. We can reduce occupational licensing. Right now, almost half of the occupations require government commitment, and that has stifled the ability for people to start new businesses. And our whole economy has become significantly less dynamic over the past 20 years. As a result, it's harder to take advantage of these new technologies. If we do some of those things, I gave a laundry list of a dozen things to Congress when I testified there. If we do even half of those things, I think we'll have not only prosperity, but shared prosperity.
And I have to ask this. I interviewed Charles Evans recently from the Fed president from Chicago, another event. So I'm into this sort of, but as an economist, so today the producer price index.
Oscar Billsby is the new president. Anyway,
I was on the floor. Today the PPI was high again. Are you surprised at the resiliency of the economy, given interest rates, given everything that's going on?
I think everyone's surprised. I just had to put a word for Oscar Billsby. He was a colleague of mine at the NBER, and he just got to be the new Fed president out there. But no, I'm totally surprised because this combination of very low unemployment, falling inflation, we've never seen anything quite like that before. I think it's a little early, but I think I may be beginning to win my bet that the one explanation for reconciling that is that there's some productivity gains in the economy that are allowing us to produce more output without more inflation. I hope that's the answer. But to be fair, I got to be a little modest because you're coming out of the pandemic. There are these giant stimulus checks and people working at home and savings. It's just huge amounts of savings. And all the economic indicators are a little bit haywire, and it's hard to reconcile them. But my fingers crossed, this could be the early stages of a real economic revival. And Larry Summers is, he rarely admits that he was wrong, but he said he was wrong about what was happening with inflation and unemployment. And I'm really hopeful that because of what the tech folks like UiPath and others are doing, that we could have the best decade ahead of us we've ever seen.
That's incredible, Eric. I think you mentioned as well, but Erik Brynjolfsson, you have a great website. I found it to be amazing with all your research and work from before. People should go look at that. It's a great site. I just want to say thank you. This has been awesome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Bob. It's really good.
So now I have a distinct pleasure to go, I think, from the AI awakening topic from Eric, which was just terrific, to the road ahead. And I will, without further delay, I want to introduce my good friend, our founder and co-CEO, Daniel Dines, to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. It's always a privilege to be in front of you, but today it's even a more special time for all UiPathers, and I think for the RPA movement. Exactly 10 years ago, we met our first customer for RPA, literally. And we were a very small company at that time. We were just launching our Studio 1.0 in March 2013. And we appealed to a small audience of developers. They are not very excited by our low-code, no-code product. So we thought, oh, that was it. It was our last bet. We were working together for 10 years. And I literally thought, this is the end of the company. We have to find some nice jobs and get a life. But exactly at the beginning of October 2013, we got a customer request with an anonymous address like rajesh@yahoo.com. And usually we knew that our customers are coming from businesses. So at that point, we didn't have any support. We were just some engineers writing code. But I had an instinct to ask one of our engineers to talk to that guy and see what it's all about. After 1 hour, she came to me saying, damn, actually, this is a large company and you have to talk to him. So I jumped into a call right away. And this guy asked me up front, how do you compare with Blue Prism? And I said to him, I don't know what Blue Prism is. Let me search. So I searched online and I got this website that's kind of boring, like typical corporate website with Korean investors and about us. And I told him right away, we cannot compare with them. They are just a small company. They look like a big company. But this guy, Rajesh, was really into our software. So he didn't care about the site. He really liked our UiPath Studio. That was the thing that he was after. And the other thing was the company that I mentioned was not flexible enough to work with language. In retrospect, if you reflect on this, it's kind of unbelievable that at the beginning of what would be a big category like RPA, the company that started that category was not flexible enough. But that gave us an opening. I want to tell you the story of UiPath is the story of humility, but it's also the story of bold and fast decisions, and also a story of customer focus. And I want to walk you through some seminal moments that we got during our history to get here. Because you know the saying, you overestimate what you can do in 1 year, but you underestimate what you can do in 10 years. I couldn't have not underestimated more. So after that initial meeting, this guy offered us to go to Chennai and work on a pilot. And it was a big decision for me back then because I had to take basically 3 of my best developers. We were a company of 10 people. Sent them to Chennai for like 3 months without any promise. They told me, you should do it for cost. But in the end I said, why not? This is our chance. So they went there, they spent 3 months, and we built in 3 months what they tried with the other software to build in 1 year. They didn't even believe that this is possible. But that's the story how a small company, but building a great piece of technology, because we started just with this studio, but just a great piece of technology can enter a really big category and can talk to all the best and greatest customers in the world. But we started with something brilliant. And we learned from that first customer, we learned. we learned that it's not enough to create just one automation. You have to orchestrate hundreds, thousands of automations. And it was the right moment when we built our orchestrator. And it took us another like 2-3 years to build orchestrator. But at the beginning of 2017, we were ready. We had already the best overall product in the market. Our orchestrator was modern technology built for cloud era and really served our customer needs because we built it exactly per customer's needs. And also another good timing was at the end of 2016, I just met what will become one of my best friends, Asegawa-san, that at that time was in between jobs and he was thinking he just heard about RPA and he was thinking to bring RPA to Japan. He always thought that RPA is gonna save Japan. So he's a guy that always had in mind, how can I support Japanese society? And I thought initially he's a very strange guy. I met him in London after he was after a long, like 14 hours flight and totally jet lagged. And he was blinking. So I thought, wow, it's not, I was not sure. But he has a warm personality. And we agreed that he will work part-time to bring RPA in Japan. And in January 2017, I was, I think, on my second trip to India and my first trip to Singapore, that we were already expanding into Asia, but having India as a base. And Koichi called me while I was in Singapore and told me, Daniel, I just talked to very big Japanese customer, one of the mega banks in Japan. And they are doing a big RPA program. They are willing to consider us, but they have to speak to you in person because otherwise they will not trust the company. I said, yes, why not? Again, I changed my tickets from Singapore and I flew to Tokyo. And I always wanted to visit Japan. I was inspired when I was younger by Japanese culture, particularly by a book called The Shogun that shows the story of an Englishman, in Japan during the Tokugawa shogunate and the cultural shock of some Western guy into Japan. So I was really into it. I learned a lot even prior to going to Japan about the culture, about the way of behaving. So going to Japan still, I had no idea what I'm up to there. But I met this amazing Japanese Yamamoto-san that works for SMBC. And at that time, he was in charge of the biggest automation program that I heard about. But he was gentle enough to meet me and also have dinner with me. And he introduced me to one of the most amazing Japanese customers, a very bonding experience, to have a dinner of shabu shabu, where we basically cook your food. And he cooked for me. So I have an unusual connection with him. And he described what he wants to, and I told him, Yamamoto-san, if you give us the chance, we will invest massively in Japan. Next time I'll come here, we will have 6 people. working full time for us and helping you, dedicated to you. I'm not sure if you believe me or not, but when I came back to Japan in April 2017, and by the time we had the 6 people, and we already started to show SMBC our software is differentiated. And they made the decision to actually replace the incumbents. So they have chosen 2 companies to work for, both attended and unattended, one for each space. And they have decided to replace both with us on the merits of our technology, but also on the merits of our extreme customer focus. Because we were totally there with them. And we learned so much from that experience to build our software by the requirements of a big, sophisticated Japanese bank. Opened us the world to the big finance organization. It's no coincidence that after that, in 2018 and 2019, we were capable of selling to Bank of America, Wells, JP, Morgan Stanley. But without that initial phone call in Singapore, I don't think it would have happened. So always that took me to reflect on our roots. So I really believe that humility is a core tenet of our culture, and this is the way we build UiPath. I think this is why I have the privilege to be here in front of you. And I also have the big privilege to invite here on the stage Yamamoto-san, which I'm happy to call my friend. You've been on the stage with me first time in 2018.
Yes, indeed. It was.
I think already SMBC had great success.
Yeah.
I think it was at the tune of 1 million hours saved.
Yes.
So can you tell us what happened since then?
Okay. And when I spoke about our journey after Miami in 2018, I mentioned we have freedom of 1 million hours by then. But today, we'd like to proudly say we freedom of total of more than 6 million hours by the group. And then, in other words, we generated $136 million equivalent to the work of 3,000 employees. And we didn't end it. And we allocate these hours to more strategic and challenging area to scale our business. And well, result is apparent in the numbers. We increased our net business revenue by 25% for SMBC and $500 million as a group. We must leverage automation to not just pursue efficiency, but also to redefine the way we work, amplify our ability, and finally enhance our competitive advantage in the market. While automation is crucial for smart working practice, its true business impact lies in our human ingenuity and creativity to how we reinvent the way we work. As Rob early yesterday mentioned, it's about what our technology enables us to do.
Well, I think it's amazing, guys. I just take a moment, think about $500,000, but 25% increase in operating margin. Right? So, what do you think was the key success factor to spreading automation in SMBC Group?
Okay. We've been pushing hard on automation since 2017, using over 4,000 applications to make our daily task easier. It became a key part of our company's culture, pushing us to keep improving. But success with automation isn't a one-off thing. It needs ongoing effort to really become a part of the workplace and contribute to the revenue growth. Continuity is a power. We've taken a bottom-up approach to this, training over 2,000 of our employees with UiPath to develop their own RPAs and make their day-to-day tasks more efficient. These small individual successes have added up to big company-wide shift toward everyday productivity and have really shaped our culture. While we are proud of our achievements, the journey hasn't been easy. There's no quick fix for instant result. It takes a time and lots of try and errors. In today's world, improving productivity is a major goal for all companies. So we established SMBC Value Creation, a consulting company fully owned by SMBC, to share our knowledge and help other companies learn from our experience in 2019.
Yeah, this is awesome. And so you actually lead value creation as the CEO. You are
Yes.
too modest to say this. And tell me a bit more about the
Yeah, anyway, I'd like to actually really appreciate you because of SMBC Group. Everyone knows we are very mindful of costs. So we know where that creating reliable ROI, return on investment, and pursuing management is crucial to continue any initiative. Though investment is needed, you have, especially you, help us gain more benefit than just financial ones. Because of these assured results, even at the cost-aware company like ours, we keep pushing for more progress and speed in our evolution.
Yeah, I think especially in our times, being cost cautious is so important. And tell us, what is your advice for all of us, based on the learnings we had in the last 6 years?
Sure. I'd like to introduce a Japanese philosophical concept known as shuhai. Originally introduced in the 16th century within the context of tea brewing, it's now recognized stage of learning, and I constantly share it as a principle of pursuing professionalism with my team. Let's break down it into components. First, learning the basic form of practical work. Deviate from the basic form, having a team organization perspective and improve the work from the viewpoint of overall optimization. Last one, B, establish one's own significance and strive to enhance its value while contribute to the society. I believe this also applies to the pursuit of productivity improvements utilizing UiPath. Should simply automation tasks that were done manually. Now that automation has become commonplace, I think. Thanks to UiPath, we move past this stage. Next, fundamentally change business process through the RPA, AI, automation, and creatively develop them using the AI. This impact of technology, like automation and AI, has been showcased through this conference. The next stage of how to use and build upon this is something only we can determine. Lastly, together with the UiPath, maximize your own abilities. In the other words, realize the world of a UiPath for every person, where each individual can achieve what we want to enjoy a vibrant life. This world is already within our reach. However, where we can really create that world and how to create it depends on us. Together with the UiPath, let's create the way to future where people can walk a life that is more meaningful, creative, and truly fulfilling. Isn't it, Daniel?
Well, I have no words. It's not a good framework for all of us to think about evolution and how can we maximize our impact. But speaking about the future, how do you feel right now about the increased use of AI? So where do you think it's gonna lead us?
I think the cognitive and AI is one of the tools for accelerate UiPath. And we are already created the environment to using generative AI for SMBC employees. And also, it must be great support for student developer. And generative AI support and they answer to any situation. If we install our experiences and our know-how into the generative AI, it can answer. So it must be very powerful to accelerate your growth by using AI. I think so.
Thank you so much. And I like how you said this is gonna be like SMBC UiPath 2.0 collaboration.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Well, speaking about AI, we have a long history in building AI. So another great moment for me personally was when I was in India in Bangalore in 2018, and we showcased first time when our computer vision can understand a screenshot. So it was not based on the DOM or HTML or some kind of application knowledge. You can take like a human user purely a screenshot. I understand all the controls and the link between them. It was really like a magic moment. The entire audience was silent basically at that point because nobody did this before. And that was the base of our AI that evolved into document understanding, because in a way, screens and documents are kind of very similar if you think about it. But even more, it was an interesting night when we in 2020, and when we had like a window in COVID. So I met with Brendan and Ashil. So it was maybe a too long night, maybe a little bit too much drinking. But we realized that the automation is kind of done. So one, yeah, it's smart to understand screens and go type and click, but it's kind of dumb in the sense it doesn't understand what it does. So we came that night with the concept of semantic automation, which is about giving understanding to automation. And then we came with first product based on this concept, which I have introduced to you last year. It's called Clipboard AI. So we've focused so much into doing one simple use case, which is this copy-paste, swivel, chair type of task that many people are doing. But you'd not believe how much technology we have to build into this little tool. that is so simple to use. It looks how it's possible, it is so difficult to build. So we are using our dedicated models to understand documents, to understand screens. We are using dedicated models to classify documents. Think about, we need to understand at first view every type of document. We need to understand if it's semi-structured or it's in a natural language. We need to understand screens. We need to map between schemas of data, of documents and screens. And we use our own LLMs. We use GPT-4 to understand long documents. It's a long list of technologies that you have to pack together. And I think this is a product that we are launching right now in public preview. But this is a product that is the first of its kind, that is based on generative AI technology, but works for the business user, for every business user, and it works using the applications they are used to. It really emulates how humans are doing their tasks based on generative AI. So we are working for 3 years. And today I want to show you, I want to invite one of the keyboard AI champions that last year was listening to my speech and he was seeing our demo and he thought, wow, I need to have it at Wesco. And Wesco is a big, it's a Fortune 200 company. And Max is one of our big champions and one of the first users of Keyboard AI. So it's my pleasure to welcome Maxim Ayofi, the Global Intelligent Automation Leader at Wesco Distribution. Max, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's see, please. So first of all, Max, tell us a little bit more about Wesco and you and how you got to the automation. What was the passion around your journey?
Well, Wesco is a Fortune 500 company. We're a global company, about 100 years old. We have 20,000 employees on a mission to build, power, protect, and connect the world. And in that mission, we partnered with about 50,000 suppliers, hundreds of thousands of customers, transacting across millions of different items. The traditional automation opportunities, big processes, very stable, very easy to do. We got that, but we also have tremendous amount of value to our customers and our suppliers and our partners if we laser focus on their unique needs and deliver those unique needs to them. When we thought automation, we thought UiPath, we're not necessarily thinking about the big things. We figured those would be addressed other technologies, but delivering those unique needs what attracted us to the problem. And that's really where we are, and translating to the automation language. Those are the processes that have high variability. Those are the processes that have not tremendous amount of volume. So automating those is a little different than doing a typical automation.
So Max, you were one of the pioneers of Keyboard AI. Tell me a little bit more about your experience here.
Well, I was here in the audience last year listening to you, and about halfway through your presentation of Keyboard AI, I thought, you know what, this is an awesome idea, this is an awesome product. Distribution industry in general is very heavy on small documents, and a couple of pages long. But if you think about 15,000 suppliers, hundreds of thousands of customers, multiply it by 10, and that's how many versions of a purchase order receive any transaction you receive. And those things need to be processed. So right away, texted our account rep saying, hey, I want to be part of the figure for this. I want to be working on it. Let's connect. Let's do something about it. Next month, in the Pittsburgh user group, we had us been doing the demo of Keyboard AI. The rest is history.
Oh, I know you are kind of big into citizen development program. You've seen our autopilot demonstration yesterday. How do you feel about the future? If you think of 1 year from now on, what would be how do you imagine it?
Well, I wish you could have ended our panel yesterday about citizen developers, but to summarize 20 minutes into two, we really view the citizen developers from two lenses. One is very pragmatic view. We need our ambassadors to the business. We need our eyes on the ground. We need to have our change agents, folks who will come in and say, I want to automate something. It's very different when somebody in the organizations want to automate something versus coming to the organizations and hey, can I no idea to automate your job. The change management aspect of that is becoming a lot smaller. But with that, there is also less pragmatic reason to love citizen development. It's making people's life a little easier, a little more palatable, a little more enjoyable. And on that journey, what we see in what we call a negative ROI dimension. Those are small things that we really want to give to folks to give them productivity back. And they are 3-minute tasks. They might be 5-minute tasks. By the time we build automation to do that, we're probably in a negative territory. What was announced yesterday and what we're talking about today with Clipboard AI changes that paradigm and allows us to tackle those negative ROI dimensions, which is telling citizen developers, here's a map for you. My COE doesn't have to invest a single dollar. You spoke about all the technology that goes into Clipboard AI. You did all the work for us, so we don't have to put that technology in it. All I know is I click one button that says copy, I click the other button that says paste, and in that process, that copy paste exercise takes 30 seconds. And if it takes 3 minutes, we are way ahead of the game. Even if it works 50% of the time, and it works better than that, we are already ahead.
Well, Max, that's great to hear. I hope next year you will come back here with me and you show the new autopilot that I'm gonna introduce soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Speaking about future, I think there is no question for any of us that we will get to a point where we can just describe our processes in plain English or Japanese or whatever, and we will have an AI agent that is capable of reading the description, understanding the processes, splitting them into tasks, and orchestrating among all the actors that are required to fulfill a business process. And my question is, how do we get there? And first of all, I think a platform, an automation platform is required. AI doesn't work out of nowhere in ether. So AI needs the platform that helps with all the aspects of automating the process as much as our brain needs our body in order to understand the world and operate in this world. So how we get there, it's the most important thing. And first of all, we focus on building this great platform, integrating all the components that we built and or we acquired over time. And we go towards more end-to-end process with our platform. We work very focused on bringing more better process orchestration into our platform. We want to reuse our process mining technology to help our clients understand live processes, understand all the processes that happen live in an enterprise. We want to create a more unified build experience. We want to help our pro developers, our citizen developers to build easy, to have access to all the tools required to create end-to-end process automation. And please realize that over time, we have assembled an amazing collection of technologies that work well together. We have RPA, which is basically UI automation. But we invested heavily into API automation. And you have a world-class API automation offering with Studio Web, with our orchestrator and serverless platform. And we have document understanding. And they work together. Every process uses documents, every process uses APIs, every process uses different systems. It has to work together. And you need to have the capability to orchestrate it and to see live how the processes happen. So AI will be built on the top of this platform. So today, I want to show you what we've been up to, incorporating our best knowledge of AI and building on the top of our platform is actually an autopilot for everyone. We have the ambition to provide automation in the hands of the business users, to go where they need this, to really enhance how people work, to take people out of this trap of repetitive work and help them to do more high-level work, more creative work. I hope that today is going to mark the history of UiPath for the next 10 years. Because you will see what I think is kind of magic and amazing. So I want to invite our Chief Product Officer, Graham, to show it, hopefully live. Graham. Did we play a video or are you showing it live?
I'm going to do a video, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Do you guys want to see a video or do you want to see it live? The people spoke.
Well,
Daniel, 3 years ago, I think it was that you talked first about semantic automation. And
yes.
I think today is the dawn of that area. Today, what I'm going to show you brings together the magic that only UiPath can provide. It will provide us, it will use the best of semantic automation to be able to bring together specialized AI, generative AI, and our core automation to you and for everyone, so that everyone can have an AI-powered assistant to help them get their business tasks done. So, next stage on this, stage in our journey here for Florida is to go to Japan, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I know you read Japanese, so can you tell us where the hotel is going to be? Sorry, got you.
Well,
Daniel, we both have to learn Japanese, but no problem. I'm going to
I
tell
can read half of it, but not all of it.
No problem. Autopilot to the rescue.
Okay.
So this is Autopilot in Assistant, and I'm going to give it the chance to read the page for us. I'm going to bring that essential context in, and I'm going to ask it a very simple question, which is to help plan the trip.
But how does it read the page?
So using our computer vision, it's looking into the page, getting all of that optical character recognition, and able to translate that for us. And it knows not just about that page, but it knows who I am. It knows about our business, and it knows about our policies and the way that we do work. So what it has done here is actually said to me, hey, if you're going to be taking this trip, you're going to be staying at the ANA Intercontinental Hotel. Based on my role and who I am, thank you. I appreciate you're going to be able to give me a business class trip.
Not 10 years ago, believe me.
The first thing it wants to make sure is that I can actually go. It's in a couple weeks, so I better make sure that my passport is valid. So I'm going to drag and drop my passport picture here into Autopilot, and I'm going to ask it, is it valid? And, Daniel, we do these things kind of last minute, and this is, latest code, but this is a specialized AI model that's extracting out the key values And autopilot's coming back and saying that, ooh, you know what? My passport's going to expire really soon. So I better go get it reviewed really quickly. Fortunately, we have an expedited service for that. And because autopilot has access to all of the automations that my COE has built for us, it's suggesting that I use one of them right now. Because it has all of the context of the trip and my information and what I'm trying to do, it's going to automatically fill out that automation, all the key information that I need in ServiceNow to be able to create the right ticket so that when my team takes a look at it, they see that it's been filled out for me and exactly what I need to do. Just a couple clicks, I'm feeling ready. But there's more. I want to be able to pull in information about my customers. I want to know who's going to be there. So here you see that incident has been
You
filled
don't
out.
need to touch it on the right.
Nope, not yet.
But
Not yet. But this is for you too, Dan. So I hope that you get as much value as that we're all to get. So next, I'm going to figure out which of my customers will be attending. And when I submit that, there's a couple things that have to happen. First, we have to go to Marketo. We're going to use the integration service to get the list of customers. Then I'm going to go to Salesforce and I'm going to get key information about the opportunities. And I didn't even expect it to do that, but it formatted it really nicely in the table for me, bringing that all together. And in a couple of clicks, it's also suggested to me that I can ask my team for some help on this. That sounds like a good suggestion. So I'm going to take this summary and I'm going to use the integration service again to go to pick the right channel and send it directly into Slack. So there it goes. It's picked out the right channel name. It's given me a nice summary. And again, one click and it's off to my team. So I feel pretty good about this. How are you feeling? You ready to go to Japan?
always.
Okay. So let's pretend that we finished our trip and we're coming back. Dan, I don't know when the last time is you filled out an expense report, but it's a real pain in the butt, man.
Well, Suji knows better.
Yes, he probably does. So maybe Suji can come on stage and I can show her this part. So when you fill out expense reports, there's a whole bunch of different steps you have to take. First, you got to go through your email. You got to go sift through all of that. Then you got to go download the documents. Then you got to go fill out a form in SAP. And what Autopilot's going to do for me is make that like magic. It's going to actually put together two different automations at the same time. First, it's going to basically look through and search my email. Then I've got an automation that my COE built to download that information and use a specialized AI model, a document understanding model for receipts and invoices. It's going to extract all of those key information and it's going to fill that out in the SAP automation that comes next, which usually takes a lot of time to fill out. When it does that, it's going to fill out all of the key information that I get. And it's going to give me a chance to put the human in the loop to make sure that that's really right for me. And I will see, there it goes. It's adding that concurrent expense entry at the ANA Intercontinental Hotel. That's lovely. And voila, all the dates, all the amounts, everything there. How cool is that? Now, while Autopilot's busy filling this out, we're using the magic of great old UI automation, right? So UI automation here is in Concur. It's filling out the expense report for me. I can go get a cup of coffee, but actually, here's the last thing I want to do, Dan. There's some really cool people that we've met at this event. And one of them yesterday, Flo Yi, I want to stay in touch with. So while this is going on, I'm going to create a new chat here. And at the same time, I'm going to say, open LinkedIn.
You can work while the robot is working in the same time. This is
Yeah.
only UiPath can do.
That's exactly right. The cool part about this, Daniel, there is no automation for that. No robot, Autopilot has no idea how to do this task. No COE has thought about this and has never done it before. And this, we're going to use AI automation. to have autopilot figure out the right next steps. This is where the magic of specialized AI and generative AI plus automation come together. What you can see is autopilot. My hands are here. This is not a video. Autopilot is going to go figure out. It just opened up LinkedIn. It's looking at the page using computer vision to figure out which buttons to click, which fields to fill out. It's typed Flo's name, it's clicked on her profile, and it stops for a moment because it's critically important at this juncture to make sure that I'm really ready to connect with her. And because she did a great job, didn't she?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, she's going to be my very first automatic automation here with AI automation. And it can add this for me. It's going to go through and confirm. And there it is. Flo, if you're out there, I would appreciate if we get to connect because. So at this point, you've seen autopilot combine specialized AI and generative AI plus UI automation to do some amazing things that were never before possible. But there's always one more thing, right? So this is something that I'm probably going to do quite often, right? And maybe I want to share that with you, Daniel, so that you can connect with other people, or share it with my COE so that they can create it for everybody else. We're going to now close the loop. We believe that this is for everyone, and that citizen developers, every one of you, every employee should be a citizen developer. Well, one click away. And we have captured not only my intent, but all of the steps that I took to find Flo and to connect with her. And so you can see that I've just entered that natural language into Studio. And all of those steps will then create a workflow automation that I can then directly reuse myself or share with everybody else. And there it is. That's the magic of specialized AI, generative AI, and a personal assistant that's your AI work partner. Yeah, thanks so much.
I have seen this demo a few times.